Hey everyone, and welcome back to the first episode of Season 2 Recap. I'll be doing this series as often as possible and we'll be recapping the entire season stage by stage of each team, leading from first place to last place. For episode 1, I will be talking about the team that placed last in the second season of the Overwatch League, the Florida Mayhem. During the off-season, Florida Mayhem made drastic changes to their roster after their not so spectacular first season. They dropped the entire roster except for Tavik, S&T, and side player, with S&T moving to a coaching role while staying as a substitute player. Then they picked up Zephyr from the Seoul Dynasty, Hargopun from Mayhem Academy, Apply, who is being moved from Mayhem Academy to a 2-way contract, Chris from Meta Athena, Swanfat from Energy Esports, and BQB from X6 Gaming. Mayhem also had staff additions in Bare Hands as assistant general manager and head of scouting, Robert Yip as performance coach, Promise from Mayhem Academy, and Yeah as assistant coach, while also dropping Ryder from the assistant coach role. The first impressions from a lot of people heading into the second season was a bunch of budget Koreans that had lots of potential heading into the second season. Nobody really knew much about most of the players, so it was assumed that they would do mostly okay. Okay, so obviously this wasn't exactly what everybody expected from the Mayhem, but it wasn't a surprise either. They were only able to win a single match, and that was against a Fusion with the sub who was on an off roll. They constantly looked split, they crumbled under pressure easily, and didn't look synergized at all. This was also arguably one of their easier stages too. They played a confused Charge, Houston, Hunters, and easily the second worst team in the league at the time, and still lost. On top of that, the Florida Mayhem took notice of Zephyr's performance and signed McGravy from the Academy team and promoted Apply from the Academy team a week and 10 days into the stage respectively. These two did look like the bright spots on the team, but that only did so much for them. All anyone could do is pray that the new carriers for the team could pull enough weight. The team did not look like they were heading in a favourable direction and looked like they were starting to follow the same track as the Miz. Florida decided after stage 2 they wanted to make some changes to the roster. They decided that the best way to move was to strip the team of Western players and move towards a full Korean roster. Although that sounds good in retrospect, the current Western players besides side player looked to be the only good players on the team. This did make sense though because there were internal issues with not being able to communicate and coaches having a hard time giving advice. So what did Florida do? They decided that they wanted to kick the only Korean staff members and bring in a Westerner. It's as stupid as it sounds. This new roster didn't live up to the previous roster's 1-6 record and looked as lost as ever trying to find a new identity. Florida had a track record of everyone saying, "Don't worry, wait until they change the roster, it'll be better." Florida made some big moves this stage that made people think that Florida could actually pick up their game going into stage 3 and 4. Factfiction and Shax from Florida's Academy team were transferred to LA Valiant alongside McGravy for Valiant Star Main Tank Fate. A lot of people found this move very exciting for Florida and looked to be the change that could turn the team around. Alongside this, Byron from NRG Esports joined the team, with Apply to Vic and S&T being dropped. The team continued to stay at its pace of continuously trying to find a playstyle and starting roster and not getting much success. About a third into the stage, Rain from O2 Blast joined the team after it was pretty obvious that Chris wasn't playing the Overwatch League level. 2 days later, it was announced that DPI, Gargoyle, and Karayan from WGS Armament were joining the team alongside Florida's new head coach, Unred, assistant coach KH1, and Ryu as analyst. These huge changes looked to be exactly what Florida needed to proceed into stage 4 with fists up and ready to fight. By stage 4, Florida became what they should have been as a team. Maybe not the best team, but a team that could sit around a C tier, with Gargoyle being an obvious improvement over Zephyr and Fate being the perfect tank partner to complement him, causing the team to start picking up steam. The support line was slightly inconsistent throughout the stage, but the team eventually seemed to decide on Chris and Hargopun, which was a shock to some people as Chris hadn't been the best player in the league and Hargopun hadn't been living up to his potential. Although regardless of the questions everyone had for the team, they still ended up proving themselves by the end of the season as a team to look out for come stage 3. Although the team had an unideal season, it seemed to come together towards the end. With a stronger coaching staff and a few more players, the team could become a roster that it should have been. Heading into Season 3, I feel as if Florida need to find their starting 6 and stick to it. Finding a new support line and potentially a more flexible DPS could be a really good path for Florida to head into Season 3 with. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you liked the video. See ya!